His
Okay.
report.
Got a message, yeah.
Great. So we will upload this to YouTube after the fact. And again, thank you everyone who's with us now. But we will upload this to YouTube after the fact. So Chair Hart, sorry for the delay, but I think we are good to go.
No need to apologize. Thanks for your Herculean efforts to get us going. Good afternoon, everyone. I hereby call this remote meeting of the Washington Metrorail Safety Commission to order. This meeting is being recorded as well as streamed live for the public. Mr. Smith, do we have a quorum today?
We do, Chair Hart. You're in attendance. Vice Chair Rush is in attendance, and Commissioners Bob, Al-Khatib, and Lobby are here.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. We will start today with our safety message from Emergency Management Specialist Richard David. Mr. David?
Thank you, Chair Hart. April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month. If you are operating a vehicle, be sure you are 100% focused on driving. A moment of distraction can cause a tragedy. This means not using your phone. Talking, texting, and using apps divert your attention from driving. If you can't wait, pull over and use your phone safely when you are not driving. Take an extra minute or two. It's well worth keeping yourself and others alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. David. We will now move on to the minutes from our last meeting. Minutes of the March 7th, 2023 meeting were posted for review. Are there any additional corrections or additions to the minutes from the commissioners? Hearing none, I move approval of the March 7 minutes as circulated. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Rush. Thank you. Commissioner Rush has seconded the motion. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say yay. Yay.
Yay.
Any opposed, please raise your hand and say nay.
Chair Hart, it appears to be a 5-0 vote. I do need to get Commissioner Al-Khatib to say yay if I can, just to make sure. Can you unmute and do it just so we're in compliance? Sorry.
Yay.
Thank you. Okay, vote is 5-0, Chair Hart.
Thank you, Commissioner Al-Khatib, and thank you, Mr. Smith. We provide an opportunity. The next item on the agenda is public comments. We provide an opportunity for public comments at each of our meetings. And we will now ask if any members of the public who have joined our Zoom webinar would like to speak. Will they still be able to do it in the same way given the situation that we're in now?
Yes, Chair Hart.
Okay, thank you. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom, and our staff will unmute one person at a time. Each person will have a maximum of 2 minutes. I will pause now to see if we have any public comments. While we're waiting, I would also remind everyone, including those of you watching on YouTube, that you can always report any concerns, any safety concerns through our website, WMSC.gov, through our social media channels like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or by email. Ms. Miner, do we have anyone who has indicated they would like to speak today?
I do see hands raised, Ms. Miner, if you're not able to see them in the.
You're right, I am not able to see them.
I do apologize. I was trying to unmute. Yes, we have 2 people that would like to speak today, Chair Hart. The first speaker is Brian. Brian, you have 2 minutes. I'm going to take you off mute so that you can speak.
Yes, Tiffany, what are you saying? You look kind of lame. Tiffany, you might not. Richard, Chris Hart. I see you, Chris Hart. I see you. Commissioner Rush, yeah? What are you saying? Commissioner Sahih Al-Khatib, yeah? David Mayer, you're looking kind of puzzled.
Okay, so our next person.
Don't ever mute me again, Tiffany. Don't ever mute me again. Tiffany, I'll come to your house if you mute me ever again, okay? Don't mute me ever again or I'll come to your house. Tiffany, I said stop muting.
Okay, our next person is Mr. Will Jackson. Will, you have 2 minutes to speak. You're unmuted.
You guys can hear me, right?
Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you.
Awesome. Good afternoon, Chair Hart and Dr. Meyer and commissioners in the commission. So I know I was here last month, and I don't intend to keep armchairing the Safety Commission, so I will not keep doing that. I just happened to be here sitting in person when this happened. So I just wanted to share a quick comment. So I was a bit alarmed by a comment by one of the commissioners. There was a comment about the return to ATO, and there seemed to be a bit of kind of like a buzzword-esque comment. I think it was Dr. Meyer and Commissioner Laube were sharing comments about just kind of how ATO works and things like that. And I just wanted to make a note. I was reading through actually the NTSB public docket about the Fort Totten accident, and I just wanted to remind that I think no one is challenging the fact that ATO is, probably the best way to go. It's the industry standard. But there is concern even in that hearing about a line of questioning regarding one of the vendors and things like that. So I just wanted to remind you that there really is no such thing as true automation, if that makes sense. I think that, humans are touching it every step of the way. You have to remember the intentions, even of the engineers. I think there was concern by the NTSB of those involved, by the person testifying. I don't, I'm limited on time, so I won't go into all the details, but I just wanted to remind, the commissioners that I think when Dr. Meyer and Commissioner Laube were discussing these things, they weren't trying to be naysayers. These are very valid concerns about ATO that I think WMATA has been trying to address, and there's just many factors going into this. And that particular comment really scared me. So I just wanted to add that to the record. And again, as always, I really thank you all for your work. And I'm not trying to armchair the commission at all. I just happen to be sitting right there because of my previous comment. So again, as always, thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Jackson. I see that we do have another hand, Mr. Emery Tate. Mr. Tate, you're off mute. One second.
Is the commenter enabled?
Mr. Taylor, can you speak so we can check your mic? I'm sorry, Mr. Tate. It appears you're unmuted. Mr. Tate, can you hear me?
The commenter is unmuted, but I'm not getting any audio.
Mr. Tate, we're unable to hear you. If you could please send us an email, then we can address your concerns. It looks like we have another hand. Kavil Hobbs.
Hello.
Hello. You have 2 minutes.
So I am from Madrid, and I really am a racist, and I don't know how to contain that. And I
Okay, I think that's it for our commenters. Chair Hart.
Okay, thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Ms. Minor. Thank you to the members of the public who chose to comment. Next item on the agenda is my remarks. Our meeting today includes updates on the WMSC's ongoing safety oversight activities and the actions that we take on a daily basis to ensure that Metrorail continuously improves the safety of its system. I want to thank the WMSC staff for their tireless oversight work on behalf of the region across the Metrorail subject areas, day in and day out. Dr. Meyer, do you have any opening remarks?
Yes, I do. I'll start today with updates on several ongoing investigations. First, on March 17th, a train being operated in automatic train operation, or ATO, contrary to Metrorail safety rules and procedures, overran Innovation Center Station. The front of the train stopped more than 100 feet beyond the end of the platform and only stopped after the train operator initiated emergency braking. The investigation has determined that the train operator had initially operated an ATO in passenger service undetected by Metrorail numerous times, including multiple times on the day of the safety event. Metrorail did not carry out supervisory oversight or quality assurance activities to effectively identify or correct the safety issue. In addition, video related to this event demonstrates that the operator was eating a meal while operating the train, which is also contrary to Metrorail rules and procedures. In ATO, train operators must remain alert, focused, and engaged, as small details, such as a console light illuminating or not illuminating as expected, can indicate that operator intervention is required. This is an issue we have raised to Metrorail before as something that needs to be addressed in the safety certification process with necessary mitigations, including training and internal oversight. We've been informed that this operator will not be returning to duty. The reason that the train overran the station remains under investigation. For context, Metrorail's experience operating an ATO shows in the years past, shows that station overruns are among the known hazards of this mode of operation. For instance, leading up to the 1996 fatal accident at Shady Grove Station, Metrorail averaged just over 1 overrun per day. These events put people at risk. Proper train control and other mitigations, whether in manual or automatic operation, are needed to ensure safety. Our ongoing investigation of the March 17th station overrun has found that rail controllers had not acted as required by Metrorail procedures, among numerous indications that trains were being operated in ATO, particularly in February and early March. These instances were also not investigated by any part of Metrorail until the WMSC identified them. This is another example of Metrorail's culture of non-compliance with written rules and safety procedures. If controls in place to ensure the safety of passengers and workers are ignored, such as the procedures for action when train indications show improper use of an operating mode, then those controls do not provide the intended level of safety for Metrorail passengers and employees. After we identified and communicated the safety issue of Metrorail not acting in accordance with procedures regarding trains that are indicating being operated in an ATO without authorization, Metrorail controllers have begun following up on indications of ATO operation. The investigation has found that at least some of those indications of trains being operated in ATO, though, may not be accurate. Specifically, the WMSC coordinated with safety department investigators at the WMSC's request to review underlying train to wayside communication data, which indicates that in addition to possible false indications, there are locations where no information at all is collected for periods of at least several hours. This indicates that these systems may not be performing as designed. The proper functioning of these indications is part of a system that Metrorail intends to rely upon as part of its ATO and Auto Doors project. This underscores the need for Metrorail to take a systematic approach to its planned reintroduction of ATO and Auto Doors. We have highlighted this to Metrorail on an ongoing basis for several years. This approach, which is required by Metrorail written procedures, is necessary before the WMSC can concur that Metrorail has properly completed its safety certification process for introducing ATO and auto doors, including implementation of any mitigations and corrective actions. Mr. Sahu will provide more details later in the meeting on our continuing work. In regard to other ongoing investigations, we are investigating last week's fatality on the Red Line. A person entered the roadway and was later found deceased near Judiciary Square Station on April 3rd. We're still gathering and reviewing data regarding this event, including Metrorail's response to the report of the person on the roadway. In accordance with our program standard, this event will lead to a final investigation report that will be presented for adoption in a future public meeting. Regarding the 7000 series rail cars, our team continues our systematic data-driven approach. We continue our regular communication with Metrorail and our review of data. Through an iterative process and ongoing communication, like the process followed last year at this time, Metrorail has progressed development of the next revision of its return to service plan. Our team is currently reviewing the most recent version that Metrorail provided to us overnight. Broadly, this plan focuses on increasing the inspection interval for back-to-back and journal-bearing gap measurements based on available data. Future revisions would provide for Metrorail to replace wheel set assemblies with those more in line with the design of the 7000 series rail cars in an effort to prevent wheel migration. This would occur once Metrorail develops its replacement program. We also continue to follow up on parallel work Metrorail initiated to determine ways to address other likely contributing factors to wheel movement on axles, such as the evaluation of frogs in special track work and of Metrorail's restraining rail specifications and installation. Ms. Samara Singha will provide additional information about our oversight of Metrorail's activities related to the 7000 series rail cars in a few minutes. Moving on to other topics, we remain concerned about staffing of Metrorail's Rail Operations Control Center and other changes. After some past progress, the staffing level has slipped and is declining further. We are concerned about the negative effect this could have on the safety of operations and continue to communicate this concern on multiple levels of the Metrorail organization. On a positive note, in line with Metrorail's corrective action plans, Metrorail is progressing training improvements for rail controllers. The WMSC, however, has observed that Metrorail has reduced quality assurance activities in the ROC that were introduced as part of its extensive ROC improvement effort. The WMSC remains closely engaged on this issue, and further issues could necessitate additional action. We are, of course, also investigating this morning's derailment of a high rail work vehicle on the Blue Line. As with any Metrorail derailment, this is an accident that will lead to a final investigation report that will be presented for adoption at a future public meeting. Finally, our team submitted our annual State Safety Oversight Report, or SSOR reporting, on time to the Federal Transit Administration ahead of the March 15th deadline, as we do each year. This is due for all state safety oversight agencies by March 15th every year. We appreciate the FTA staff who provide guidance on navigating their system, and we're progressing our other annual reports on schedule for your adoption in the coming months. So this concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Dr. Meyer?
Chair Hart, I have a question for Dr. Meyer.
Yes, please, Commissioner Lobby.
Dr. Meyer, you know, I really don't have any aversion to automatic train operation. This has been something that's been under discussion since I was a Metro board member back in 2016, 2017. So I'm very interested in how they're doing this transition. So I'd like to ask you some questions about to better understand how Washington Metro Safety Commission, our role in this transition to ATO on Washington Metro. What exactly is our role? And I'd like to understand how Metro is approaching this task and any progress that they've made. And I know that we're going to have a separate presentation on this. Should we wait for that separate presentation to ask these questions, or would you like to address any of those now?
What I can say now is that our role is, well, and like you, we have been watching Metro's desire to return to ATO over the years. And what we have done is, in accordance with our program standard, we have communicated to Metrorail that we have selected this project for in-depth review, which means that our concurrence will be needed on their safety certification of the return to ATO before it can be placed into passenger use, so that we have moved that. This is similar to what we did on the extension on the Silver Line. And as a result, we will begin to provide you updates on the safety certification efforts in the safety certification agenda item during our public meetings. And we have planned to provide such an update today.
So when we talk about safety certification, this is Washington Metro's program that they follow to certify major portions of their system. Is that correct?
Yes, like other properties, Metro for many years, the better part of the last 20 years, has had a governing program plan that guides safety certification efforts. It's something that we review updates to, and they will use those documents, or that guiding program plan to plan and then carry out the safety certification.
So our role is basically to determine whether or not Washington Metro followed their own playbook. Is that correct?
That's essentially correct, and we will do that and are doing that by remaining very engaged in the process each step of the way.
And asking questions as appropriate, I would assume.
Exactly. Ms. Samarasinha, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Nothing further to add. Thank you very much.
Okay, I might have a few more questions after we have the other presentations, so I'll hold off until then, if that's all right.
Thank you, Commissioner Lobby. Any other commissioners have any questions for Dr. Meyer at this point? Seeing none, I would like to chime in that I am a gadget geek, and I'm a big believer in the power of the positive aspects of automation, which has proven itself in all kinds of modes of operation and other transportation modes. My experience is mostly in aviation, but I've seen it in other transit properties as well. In fact, I just recently had the privilege of visiting an automated train line in one of the cities in Singapore that has completely automated train lines, and the benefits of it are amazing. The point, though, is that it has to be done properly, and there are a lot of I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed in order for it to be done properly. So that's I think, Commissioner Lobby, to your question, our role is to make sure that it's done properly so that we can reap the benefits of automation once it's fully implemented. So we will now move, seeing no questions from any other commissioners on this topic at this point, we will now move on to a status update on the 7000 series rail cars. Ms. Samarasinha, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Hart. We continue to oversee Metrorail's implementation of the return to service plan and any revisions to that plan. Metrorail's plan and the submissions of any revisions is required in accordance with the WMSC's December 29th, 2021 order. As Dr. Meyer mentioned, we have been engaged with Metrorail on potential revisions to the plan over the past month. Through an iterative process and ongoing communications, similar to the process followed last year at this time, Metrorail has progressed its development of the next revision to the return to service plan. Our team is currently reviewing the most recent version that Metrorail provided to us overnight. Broadly, the plan focuses on increasing the inspection interval for back-to-back and journal bearing gap measurements based on available data. Future revisions would provide for Metrorail to replace wheelset assemblies with those more in line with the design of the 7000 series rail cars in an effort to prevent wheel migration. These wheelset specification changes will address specific safety issues identified through the derailment investigation related to railcar design. These changes would occur once Metrorail develops such a replacement program, including controls and mitigations. Metrorail has provided initial versions of several related documents pertaining to this wheelset replacement program, which Metrorail and the WMSC will be communicating on in further detail. In accordance with Metrorail's change management procedures and the agency safety plan, additional work is needed to ensure that making such a change will not lead to unintended consequences. This is a tenet of Metrorail's commitment to use data to make informed safety decisions. For example, engineering analysis and review is needed to ensure that the axles can support such a change and to determine whether the change will introduce new forces onto other parts of the rail car, the track, or the structures that may need to be mitigated. These steps to bring wheelset assembly requirements for 7000 series rail cars in line with industry norms is likely to be one part of the long-term design improvements for the Metrorail system. We are continuing to interact with Metrorail regarding the plans Metrorail is developing for such a program, including as it relates to traceability for monitoring purposes, repeatability of the process, and the process and quality control of the entire program. This would be a long-term effort. We continue to observe activities related to the return to service plan in the field, to analyze available current and historical data, and to communicate with all levels of the Metrorail organization. We continue to raise and resolve issues as they arise on an ongoing basis, and that concludes my update.
Thank you, Ms. Samarasinghe. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Ms. Samarasinghe? Okay, seeing none, we will now move on to our next agenda item, which is audits, with an update from Program Coordination Specialist Ashley Rhodes. Ms. Rhodes, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Hart. We are currently working on draft audit reports for our recent audits of Metrorail's Structures Program and Roadway Maintenance Machine Program. We have held exit conferences for each of these audits. As always, we raised certain issues to Metrorail during the audit work as they were identified related to immediate hazards. Metrorail has, for example, addressed issues related to a lubrication storage room at the Greenbelt Rail Yard. We expect to complete interviews this week for our automatic train control and signaling audit. Last month, we conducted the field visit portion of this audit. As part of this audit, we have visited locations throughout the Metrorail system, have observed Metrorail personnel performing work, and are completing extensive interviews with Metrorail personnel. We take steps to ensure Metrorail personnel feel free to speak openly and transparently with us during each interaction, as this leads to the greatest opportunity for accurate and meaningful safety praise or improvement. After completing interviews, we will complete final document reviews and hold an exit conference. Our audits assess Metrorail against the relevant criteria, such as the requirements of Metrorail's Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, requirements specified in other Metrorail documents, such as SOPs, manuals, orders, and regulatory requirements. These audits cover all aspects of Metrorail's Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan over a 3-year period and are designed to proactively identify safety issues. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Rhodes. Are there any questions from the commissioners for Ms. Rhodes? Okay, hearing none, we will now take up the next agenda item, which is corrective action plans. Program Coordination Specialist, Ms. Ashley Rhodes, the floor is yours again.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Since the last public meeting, we have closed 11 CAPs and approved 10 new Metrorail CAP proposals for implementation. This is in addition to work related to CAP modification requests from Metrorail. When Metrorail develops corrective action plans to address the safety deficiencies identified by WMSC findings and recommendations, or other issues specified by the WMSC program standard, Metrorail submits these plans to the WMSC for review and approval. Each CAP is a specific plan to address a safety deficiency, so the proactive identification of these deficiencies by the WMSC and later the resolution of these deficiencies by Metrorail is part of the continuous safety improvement process. After Metrorail submits acceptable CAP proposals that will address the safety deficiency, Metrorail is responsible for implementing its corrective action plans on the schedule documented in the CAP. Metrorail's implementation of these caps improves the safety of the system for riders and workers. We conduct our audits and oversight activities on an ongoing basis. This has led to audits which to this point have each included findings being issued every few months. Corrective actions to address each finding typically take months or years to implement, as the caps are designed to systematically address issues identified by the finding. Caps typically also include documentation of implementation prior to closure by the WMSC. The systemic nature of required fixes and the WMSC's detailed ongoing work means that the raw number of open caps may increase over time. The existence of caps demonstrates the ongoing work towards continuous improvement. Even after a cap is closed, the WMSC also monitors Metrorail's actions on an ongoing basis through our audit, inspection, and other oversight activities. Recently, Metrorail has submitted a number of cap extension requests. In accordance with the WMSC program standard, these are considered as modification requests. Regarding the latest new cap proposals submitted by Metrorail, we have now approved all of Metrorail's corrective action plans for implementation related to the track audit and internal safety review audit. For one recommendation from the track audit, Metrorail submitted hazard analysis and associated documentation accepting the level of risk as provided for in our program standard. This relates to the recommendation for proactive ongoing ballast renewal. Overall, Metrorail currently has 124 open WMSC caps that it is in the process of implementing. For example, regarding third rail power and other high voltage operations, our team is reviewing a recent submission from Metrorail related to our order issued last year regarding Metrorail's improper power restoration. The order led to specific safety mitigations and to an improved and expanded correction action plan for Metrorail. Metrorail is implementing the corrective action plan, which includes safety improvements such as staffing, training, oversight, and technical fixes that will lead to Metrorail being able to safely utilize more work locations requiring de-energization on each shift. Since the last public meeting, the WMSC has closed 11 caps. Metrorail's implementation of each of these caps improves the safety of the system for riders and workers. As part of CAP C0090, Metrorail made personnel training records available to management by vehicle-specific certification status, which will also be distributed to division supervisors and to other management at the system and regional PICs. In addition, these training records are available electronically in station kiosks. This addressed a finding from the 2021 roadway maintenance machine audit that supervisors or others have no way of confirming while in the field whether an operator is properly trained to operate a specific RMM. C0091 addressed an RMM audit finding that key safety and maintenance work lacked sufficient succession planning and training. WMATA updated training requirements and materials and created a training schedule tracking report for equipment operators. As part of CAP C0106, Metrorail created a deferral procedure for its preventive maintenance inspections, which was then incorporated into the ATC 2000 manual. This addressed a 2021 ATC and signals audit finding that Metrorail does not have a standardized determination of which preventive maintenance work must be prioritized as safety critical. As part of C0112, Metrorail implemented a new training matrix, which includes required on-the-job training for specific aspects. This addressed a 2021 ATC and signals audit finding that Metrorail had no specific minimum training course requirements, documented OJT requirements, or equipment certification for ATCM employees, or requirements that individuals be trained on a system element prior to conducting maintenance work on it. As part of CAP C0132, Metrorail assessed the feasibility of conducting drug and alcohol testing for safety-sensitive personnel who are hospitalized and unable to provide consent. As part of C0148, Metrorail updated its procedures to review job descriptions at a minimum before recruiting for that position. This addressed a recommendation from the 2021 Revenue Vehicle Programs audit that some WMATA job descriptions have not been reviewed in more than 20 years. As part of C0160, Metrorail created a new procedure to track and notify relevant managers of tools that require calibration that are nearing expiration. Additionally, an annual inventory will also be conducted as another check. This addressed a finding from the 2021 high voltage and traction power audit that Metrorail databases include many electrical tools that are beyond their required calibration dates. As part of CAP C0197, Metrorail assessed potential additions to the training for interlocking operators, such as hand cranking switches. As a result, Metrorail will now be evaluating interlocking operators on the cranking of yard switches as part of their overall certification. This addressed a recommendation from the 2022 rail operations audit that interlocking operators are authorized to hand crank switches, but were not certified to take this action. As part of CAP C0209, Metrorail updated its elevator, escalator training instructor job description. This addressed a recommendation from the 2022 station maintenance, elevator, and escalator audit that Metrorail has effective training instructors for elevator and escalator personnel. However, their experience did not match the written requirements for the positions. As part of CAP C0211, Metrorail conducted an assessment to determine the feasibility of running escalators in their opposite direction during non-revenue hours. Most of the system's escalators were tested, and it was determined to be feasible. This addressed a recommendation from the 2022 station maintenance, elevator, and escalator audit that Metrorail can improve the safety of escalators by formalizing procedures to ensure that escalators are regularly operated opposite their normal direction when safe to do so. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Rhodes. Are there any questions from the commissioners for Ms. Rhodes? Hearing none, we will now move on to our next agenda item, which is an update on some of the WMSC's latest activities overseeing Metrorail safety certification process. Mr. Sahu, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Hart. Metrorail's safety certification process is a critical element of Metrorail's safety management system. Consistently identifying hazards and mitigating the likelihood and severity of those hazards in a systematic way as documented in Metrorail's policy and procedures is what provides for the overall safety of the Metrorail system. To achieve this, Metrorail must carry out all elements of its safety requirements without bypassing any part of this holistic safety process. We oversee Metrorail safety certification through field observations, document and data review, and regular meetings with Metrorail, as well as by observing the discussions by Metrorail safety certification committees and working groups. We're continuing to engage with Metrorail regarding outstanding issues regarding their automatic train operation and automatic door operation efforts, as we have for several years. The WMSC's automatic train control and signaling team, as well as my colleagues assisting me in oversight of Metrorail's safety certification process, continue our careful oversight and consistent communication with Metrorail. ATO is a system Metrorail was designed with, but that few current personnel have operated or maintained, and that has not been used in the current operating environment. Metrorail's operations have also changed since Metrorail ceased automatic train operations in 2009. That includes changes related to conducting work and Metrorail's development and implementation of a roadway worker protection program. The safety of personnel on and around the roadway and the full focus and attention of operators when operating in ATO are some of the key areas where our team continues to communicate concerns. We also continue to assess the integrity and interoperability of all relevant systems and readiness of all personnel to support the introduction of ATO and auto doors. In this context, we have communicated specific questions to Metrorail and have ongoing meetings to discuss further issues. Our review includes the preparedness of not just the physical systems, but also the organization to effectively and safely operate what is essentially a completely new system for most current Metrorail frontline employees. Metrorail is planning a partial test of basic system functionality. Our team plans to observe this testing. If this initial testing is successful with improvements from preliminary testing, we have communicated the need for further holistic integrated evaluations that include real-world policies, procedures, and scenarios to demonstrate that the system functions as intended. We're continuing our interactions with Metrorail with a focus on Metrorail's identification and mitigation of organizational and operational hazards as required by Metrorail's safety certification program and other Metrorail safety commitments. This is a significant effort that requires Metrorail to ensure its entire organization is ready for such a change to activate these features for the first time in the current environment. This is not about only those questions that we have raised. It is Metrorail's responsibility to carry out this holistic approach in accordance with its procedures. We are awaiting further information from Metrorail and expect to have additional questions related to new information and apparent refinements Metrorail is making to its plans. Another major project that Metrorail is carrying out and that Metrorail is conducting its safety certification of is the Potomac Yard Station. This is also a project that we have designated for an in-depth WMSC review of Metrorail's safety certification process, and that therefore requires our concurrence that Metrorail has completed its process before Metrorail opens the station to riders. Potomac Yard is an infill station that Metrorail is building on the blue and yellow lines in Alexandria, along with associated new track and systems. We have observed progress on the site and continue to review documentation. Recently, I and our team have checked progress on site against Metrorail's certifiable items list and have observed corrections being made to emergency trip station boxes to ensure they properly function in an emergency. Metrorail identified safety issues related to that functionality and is now checking and working to correct these issues at Potomac Yard Station and on Silver Line Phase 2. We observed a demonstration that the emergency power de-energization switch would not function unless perfectly aligned. As a temporary mitigation, signage was installed and a safety bulletin was distributed addressing the issue. Subsequent inspections confirmed the implementation of the permanent solution. We will continue to monitor the replacement of similar switches that were installed during the construction of the Silver Line Phase 2 extension. We're also monitoring Metrorail's implementation of mitigations designated as part of Metrorail's Silver Line Phase 2 safety certification. Our team has observed current conditions in the field with interim mitigations, and I regularly interact with the Metrorail and Airports Authority personnel responsible for implementing long-term mitigations. We also continue to ask Metrorail to keep us informed of any work on automated wayside inspection systems. Metrorail describes these systems as a potential use to capture an array of measurements from rail cars that are in use to provide an additional layer of safety. As we communicated to Metrorail last year, we will review the first location for our concurrence, and Metrorail will follow that same validation and examination process for the other sites. Another project that we're conducting our in-depth review of Metrorail's safety certification process for is the review of Metrorail's 8000 series rail cars. These are several years away from arrival in the Metrorail system. Similarly, we conduct oversight work of Metrorail's other safety certification activities. It is in all cases Metrorail's responsibility to carry out this work in accordance with its policy and procedures. Thank you, Chair Hart. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Sahu. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Sahu?
I have some questions, Chair Hart.
Yes, Commissioner Lobby, please.
Thank you for that update, Mr. Sahu. As I said before, I'm very interested in this process that Metro is using to basically transition to back to automatic train operation. I did want to make an acknowledgement of Mr. Jackson's comments at the beginning of the meeting.
Mr.
Lobby, your audio is variable. It's intermittent.
Is it variable? Is that better?
Yes, that's better.
All right, I'll try to get a little closer here. I wanted to also comment on Mr. Jackson's observation that automatic train operation is not always automatic, that there's the human interface with it. And, I think that we understand that it's not just a standalone system. There's lots of interface with the human being. There's lots of processes that need to be followed, maintenance and other things to make it work properly. So I appreciate his comments there. But concerning the safety certification program, are we confident that Washington Metro has a robust program that can successfully analyze all the implications of returning to automatic train operation? Are we happy with that process they're following?
Right. So Commissioner Lobby, from a safety certification perspective, the program is robust. It starts with the preliminary hazard analysis, goes into a certifiable items list, and then you have multiple checklists after that, and then a final, like a detailed summary report. So I think the majority of our concerns are kind of from a technical perspective, just with their systems systems integration testing, and then also coordinating that with their the human factor testing from the operational scenarios. So that second part they're still developing. They are going to run some test trains for that, just to make sure that the infrastructure is operating as intended.
If I may add, Commissioner Lobby, if I may add something to what Mr. Sahu mentioned, the answer is yes. The safety certification program that exists at Metrorail is robust. However, it's as robust as the most comprehensive system safety failure modes considerations that are input into that process. So our focus is to ensure that Metrorail is as inquisitive in ensuring that the failure modes that are captured are extensive and comprehensive, and we have provided them insight where we are concerned that there might be certain hazards that are not fully understood or evaluated in order to be integrated and mitigated throughout the safety certification process.
So we're actually contributing to the hazard identification that they need to consider as part of their safety certification. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, are we doing most of the suggestions, or is Washington Metro staff, coming up with ideas on what types of things need to be addressed?
So Metrorail develops the majority of the hazard identification. We review it to make sure it's sufficient, and if we have any suggestions on items they have missed, we relay that to them, and almost all the time they will include those whatever items we have identified.
But are I'm sure we have questions about this process, or are questions getting answered in a timely manner?
Right, so there is a sitting Friday morning meeting currently. I think we've had 2 meetings, so that will be ongoing pretty much from here on out till they get to ATO and revenue service.
Okay, so we are basically communicating with them continuously on this process. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
One of the issues I've had over the years being on the Washington Metro Safety Commission is issues with roadway worker protection. And certainly many of the changes that have happened in roadway worker protection have happened since or after automatic train operation was disabled. Are we comfortable with how Washington Metro in their safety certification is addressing all the different implications to roadway worker protection?
Yeah, so Metrorail is still developing, kind of finalizing that process. Whether or not trains, when they're berthed out of station, will be in manual or auto mode. How performance levels are going to be sent to the train. So that's still in progress. So that's something we'll take a very close look at.
So lots of questions left with that process, and certainly, after if you do have a failure of the ATO system or have to shut it off, you have to go back to a manual roadway worker protection process. Is that being considered also?
Yeah, Metrorail is considering that.
Mr. Marcinga, did you want to say?
Yes, please. Commissioner Lobby, in addition to what Mr. Sahu mentioned, one of the key points that we underscore to Metrorail as part of the work that we are doing and the information and insight we are sharing on this topic is the fact that in the current environment, roadway worker protection rules exist. There's a roadway worker protection rule program that exists, which was not in place in the form that it exists today. Back in 2009, which was when the last time ATO was in operation consistently, continuously. So this is a key part that we have underscored to Metro and asked them to ensure that they are working and collaborating across the various units at Metro to ensure that roadway worker protection considerations, including what is planned as the next evolution of that program, are fully understood, fully integrated into the testing that Metrorail will be doing, on which reactivation of ATO would be predicated on. So this is something that has been a continued focus of ours, and this is something that generates significant amounts of questions from us, reminding Metrorail that in ATO, there is still needs to be a recognition that there are roadway workers present and their safety needs to be an integrated consideration into how they plan the reactivation of ATO.
Well, that's good to hear. As I said, I think ATO can add a lot to the operation, and I'm supportive of their efforts. But again, I think that we need to make sure, and Metro really needs to make sure that they do it correctly and that they identify the hazards that are out there. Even with this discussion of the operator who was operating in ATO without permission, that investigation has shown some concerns that the controllers did not know consistently what trains are operating in ATO and which aren't. And I think those type of questions that pop up really have to be addressed and understood. And certainly now is the time to do it, not after they go back to ATO and we have service disruptions or other things because we don't know what's going on the system. So I'm going to continue to ask questions on ATO as we move forward, and I just encourage the WMSC staff to continue to ask these hard questions and make sure you get the answers so that we can do this safely and efficiently.
Thank you. We
Thanks.
appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Lobby, and I would like to open it up for any other commissioners who have any questions for Mr. Sahu, and I have a comment after that. Okay, seeing none, I just wanted to just throw in as a reminder that we're not totally inventing this wheel. There are a lot of other applications of automation around in various contexts, including, as I mentioned before, in mass transit properties. And so there's, even though every property is different and has different characteristics, there's going to be a lot that we'll be able to learn from each other as we all go down this road of automation, which will be ultimately beneficial to the entire mass transit population. Any further questions for Mr. Sahu?
Sure, Hart, I have one follow-up question.
Yes, please.
Mr. Sahu mentioned that they're going to be doing some functional testing. Can you describe, what exactly that means? Is that a line or a couple of trains, and what exactly are they going to do?
Yeah, so I believe it's going to be it'll be multiple trains, maybe 6 to 8 trains. It's only on the red line, so the Alpha line to the Bravo line. It's the oldest part of the system, but the core of the system. So they'll run trains, and they just want to ensure that all the train to wayside, train to cardboard communication is working properly. The berthing of trains using precision station stopping is working properly. The marker coils are working as intended, speed commands, just So it's a way, it's the infrastructure, operational testing of the infrastructure. And then the second part would be the human factors and operational scenarios. If you have single tracking or whatever other various, day-to-day operations that could come up.
So would that be done on revenue trains or off hours?
Yeah, so this would be non-revenue. So it'd be at nighttime, there would be no roadway workers or work crews out there so they'll have track rights for the whole area.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Sahu, would there also be consideration of the infrastructure needs, in particular that you'll need continuous beginning of the station to end of the station wall with doors that open only when the train is there in front of the door so that people don't inadvertently go onto the tracks?
Right. So that is something that they are taking into account.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I might have misunderstood your question, Chair Hart. You were asking of doors that open on platforms?
The train systems that I'm aware of that are automated have the platforms have walls from beginning to the complete length of the platform so that people can't accidentally get onto the track. And the only way you get access to the track is when the train is there and the door opens concurrent with the door of the train.
Those platform screen doors are common in systems that have been opened recently and intended for fully automated use. In other words, no train operator on board. I've seen them in a variety of settings. We have them in this country and some airports, and I've seen them overseas. The Metrorail's automation system was always intended to have a train operator on board. So it is a little bit different from those very, very modern systems that I think you're talking about.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. Thank you for that, Dr. Meyer. Any other questions for Mr. Sahu before we move on to the next item of the agenda? Okay, thank you for that report, Mr. Sahu. We will now move on to safety event investigation reports that are being presented today. We will hear presentations on all of the reports and then consider a single motion on all of the reports that we are prepared to adopt. If any commissioner wishes to remove a report from that group that we will consider for adoption as a single vote, please indicate that at the end of the presentation on that report. Investigation Program Manager, Mr. Adam Quigley, will present the first reports. Mr. Quigley, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 0210 relates to a derailment in the Greenbelt Rail Yard on September 10th, 2022. A contractor-owned high rail vehicle being operated by a Kiewit contractor with a Metrorail employee on board as a pilot derailed at a grade crossing in the yard. This is a short stretch where the tracks switch from ballasted track with rail ties to tracks embedded in the asphalt roadway used by those driving into and out of the yard. The Metrorail's pilot responsibilities include assisting with direction and observation of the contractor operating the vehicle and handling communication with the yard tower and rail operations control center. Two other contractor high rail vehicles proceeded through the crossing and onto the main line tracks to travel toward the long-term yellow line shutdown area. The third vehicle derailed at approximately 2:28 a.m. as it moved through the asphalt grade crossing. The vehicle continued onto the area of the ballasted track where the vehicle then came to rest, leaning toward the third rail. The contractor and Metrorail pilot did not immediately report the derailment to the interlocking operator responsible for control of the rail yard or to the rail operations control center. Approximately 11 minutes after the derailment, it was reported to the rail operations control center. Third rail power remained energized until about 40 minutes after the derailment when a rock manager directed the interlocking operator to de-energize power. The investigation determined that the vehicle derailed as it entered the grade crossing, which the operator did not immediately recognize due to the truck continuing to move on its rubber tires until it reached the other side of the grade crossing. The investigation demonstrates that the flangeway depth and width was not maintained in accordance with Metrorail requirements, that the rear tires of the vehicle were not set to proper tire pressure for rail movement, and that the asphalt surrounding the rail was bulging and unevenly worn. Metrorail's road crossing pavement height specification considered only rail wheel flange, not the additional width of a rubber tire on a high rail vehicle. At the point of derailment, the asphalt was 0.4 to 0.6 inches above the top of the rail. In addition, the flangeway was filled with debris and grease that interfered with the wheel clearance and could cause wheel climbing. For the tire pressure, the tires were inflated to 125 psi required for over-the-road movement. Tire pressure checks are required as part of the pre-trip inspection, but this safety issue was not identified. There was no evidence Metrorail's pilot observed a pre-trip walk-around inspection. In addition to the tire pressure, further investigation and testing showed the rear rail gear had insufficient downforce. The operator in this event had not moved this vehicle before. They had been certified through the contractor's training program for the Yellow Line construction project the day before this event. The operator described being assigned to this move due to a shortage of equipment operators. As interior mitigations, Metrorail directed high rail vehicle operators moving through this grade crossing to reduce rear tire pressure to 60 psi, and spotters were assigned for these moves. As a long-term mitigation, Metrorail then resurfaced the asphalt and cleaned the flangeways. Metrorail is evaluating adjustments to its track specifications for grade crossings. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Quigley. Are there any questions from the commissioners to Mr. Quigley?
I have a couple of questions, Chair Hart.
Yes, Commissioner Lobby, please.
Mr. Quigley, this is a incident where about 100 different things went wrong here. I'm being facetious, but you know, first of all, the grade crossing was not properly prepared or was not in the proper condition. Is this just one grade crossing that this issue was present at, or is it on other grade crossings in the metro system?
So far, just this one was identified as having issues.
Have Metro looked at other grade crossings to see if this exists elsewhere?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and this is the only one they found, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The power was not cut off for 40 minutes afterwards, and the tire pressure was wrong. I note that that in the write-up, 2 high rail vehicles went through this crossing before the one that derailed, and they successfully made it through the crossing. Do we know if the tire pressure was properly adjusted on those 2 high rail cars?
We do not know that, sir, but I will add that even after the mitigations that Metrorail made to, you know, tire pressure and then resurfacing the asphalt, this vehicle that derailed still had a difficult time getting through that crossing. And then Metro ultimately just got rid of the vehicle, or, you know, they don't allow this vehicle on property anymore. There's a lot of issues with Metro property, but again, you know, they couldn't seem to get anything they tried to do to resolve the issue there to grade crossing. This vehicle had problems. It kept lifting up off the rails even after all these mitigations. So they just decided to take that Kia truck off the property.
So it's just that truck, not that type of truck, correct?
It was just this truck had the issues even after everything that Metrorail did.
Okay, couple more questions. You know, I know that the individual was qualified on the truck the day before he had the incident, and it also said in the write-up that he had worked 18 hours the day before, and the write-up mentioned that Washington Metro policies not only apply to their employees, but also to their contractors. Was this work schedule that this individual had, is this per Washington Metro's requirements?
No, it was not, sir. It was. It looks like it appears that Kia allowed this person to work those many hours.
Okay, so that's being corrected also, I assume?
Yeah, there's some communication going on between you know, expectations of contractors and Metrorail's current policies and procedures.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Lobby. Are there any further questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Quigley? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Quigley, would you please present the next report?
Thank you, Chair Hart. The next two reports relate to evacuations for life safety reasons. Investigation Whiskey 0211 relates to an evacuation of Gallery Place Chinatown Station the evening of November 23rd, 2022. In this event, CCTV shows that a rider threw a bag onto the roadway on the green and yellow line level that previous night, November 22nd, at approximately 11 p.m. The following day, November 23rd, at approximately 5:09 p.m., a rider reported the bag to the light. A rider reported the bag on the light grate next to the third rail to Metro Transit Police as a suspicious package. Metro Transit Police later, with the support of DC's Metro Police Department, responded. Throughout the event, there was confusion due to actions outside of Metrorail's emergency management process. Metrorail did not initially designate an on-scene commander, and there was later confusion among Metrorail personnel about the actions to take to ensure the situation was safe. This includes confusion about whether to stop trains and de-energize third rail power, and whether trains could continue to run on the red line on the upper level of the station. In addition, personnel such as the Safety Department's Office of Emergency Preparedness individual on scene was communicating outside of Metrorail's documented incident management process with personnel in the Rail Operations Control Center, including as it relates to third rail power. At 6:23 p.m., the on-scene commander told the mission assurance coordinator service would be suspended and riders evacuated from the station. A few minutes later, the on-scene commander stated only the lower level would be evacuated with service suspended, but red line trains could continue to service the station. Transit police reported the lower level had been fully evacuated. After that, they found 4 more riders on that platform. At 6:39 p.m., a transit police officer on the platform improperly de-energized third rail power using an emergency trip station. This is a box at the end of each station platform and every 800 feet along the roadway that includes a button that can be used to de-energize third rail power in an emergency. The box also has a phone and a blue light. Metrorail procedures requires power de-energization requests to go through the Rail Operations Control Center, except when de-energizing third rail power via the ETS box is needed to immediately provide safety. For example, this would be used if someone fell onto or near the third rail. If Metrorail personnel do de-energize power via an ETS box, Metrorail directs them to contact the Rail Operations Control Center via the telephone in that box. The Metrorail officer did not follow those processes. The rail controller got an electronic notification that the ETS mushroom had been used on track 2 and then had to contact personnel in the field to determine what occurred. Corrective actions related to this event include additions to this year's Metro Transit Police annual training related to third rail power and ETS boxes. Metrorail also communicated with rail supervisors regarding their roles as forward liaisons during emergency response and highlighted to station managers the importance of being vigilant during station walkthroughs, including station closings. Investigation Whiskey 0212 relates to an evacuation for life safety reasons of a train at Southern Avenue Station on November 21st, 2022. This was also related to a suspicious item, in this case, one that was emitting an odor. The train toward Branch Avenue was held at Southern Avenue Station for Metro Transit Police to investigate. Riders were evacuated from the train for their safety. Transit Police did not establish incident command as required by Metrorail procedures, and a rail supervisor was incorrectly assigned as on-scene commander who did not arrive on the scene until after the event was resolved. Transit Police informed the train operator and their police dispatcher that it was safe to resume normal operations. The train operator then moved forward to continue their trip. They had speed commands indicating the train could move. Personnel in the Rail Operations Control Center were not aware the train operator was going to move. The ROC operations manager then called Transit Police Dispatch to ask whether the train had been released. The radio controller also asked the same question of the train operator. The train operator confirmed that the train had been released. Metrorail personnel did not effectively communicate and coordinate during this event. Metrorail has open corrective action plans that is implementing, including CAP 0162 related to Metrorail not consistently following the incident command system structure. Again, thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Quigley. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Quigley? Seems like we've had a lot of these where they're not following procedures in situations like that.
Yes, sir.
I have a short
Are you
question
noticing
for
any
Mr.
movement to fix those issues, or what are you seeing?
Slowly but surely, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any
I had a
commissioner?
short question for Mr. Quigley.
Yes, Commissioner Lobby, please.
Who's responsible for making all these decisions when you have these situations? Like there's decisions on whether to run trains, whether to service platforms, whether to evacuate stations, whether to turn the power off. Isn't there one individual who's supposed to make all those decisions? But it seems like a free-for-all in some cases.
Sometimes it seems that way, yes, sir, but it would be the on-scene commander, or when you have other jurisdictions involved, the incident commander.
Okay, and they would make decisions such as whether trains can move through the station or whether they can service the platform or in any of those situations, or whether the station should be closed?
Yeah, some of it is part of the procedure and policy, you know, depending on the event, the SOP will kind of clarify what you should do. Sometimes those are followed, sometimes they aren't, but it's ultimately left up to the incident commander.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lobby. Any questions from any of the other commissioners for Mr. Quigley? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next investigation. That's investigation analyst, Ms. Natalie Keyrose, will present the remaining reports. Ms. Keyrose?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 0213 relates to 2 evacuations for life safety reasons at Pentagon City Station. One occurred on November 29th, 2022, and the other took place on December 17th, 2022. In each event, Metrorail had allowed trash and debris to build up behind the parapet wall at the edge of the platform away from the tracks. In each event, a rider was then smoking in the station and tossed their cigarette over the parapet wall, which ignited the debris. In each event, train service was suspended, the smoke and fire were addressed, and service later resumed. Metrorail work orders demonstrate that the trash buildup had been identified, but that Metrorail had not removed this material. In part, this was due to the personnel responsible not having the necessary tools and training to safely reach the base of the area behind the parapet wall. This past Sunday evening, another debris fire occurred at Pentagon City Station behind a parapet wall. That event remains under investigation. As part of the corrective actions for the November and December events, Metrorail is testing longer tools to allow workers to reach trash and debris behind parapet walls, is examining improvements to the cleaning process, and considering expansions of or adjustments to the metal grate installations now installed in several stations to cover the gaps between the parapet wall and the station vault. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Keyrose. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Ms. Keyrose? Okay, seeing none. Ms. Keyrose, will you please present the remaining reports?
Yes, thank you. Investigations Whiskey 0214 and Whiskey 0215 relate to the evacuations for life safety reasons following shootings in Metrorail stations. Investigation Whiskey 0214 relates to an evacuation for life safety reasons following an altercation and shooting in Metro Center Station on December 7th, 2022. During this event, a train operator pulling into the station acted to protect the safety of riders by continuing through the station. We appreciate this operator's actions to protect Metrorail riders. A station manager reported the shooting to the Rail Operations Control Center and reported that trains should not service the station. Riders evacuated the station for their safety after hearing the shooting. Investigation Whiskey 0215 relates to an evacuation of Benning Road Station due to a shooting on December 8th, 2022. A rail supervisor reported the emergency and with the assistance of the station manager and other rail supervisors, helped an injured rider and evacuated the station. In compliance with Metrorail procedure, a rail controller later instructed trains to pass through the station without stopping during the investigation. Lastly, investigation whiskey 0216 relates to a collision and fatality at Anacostia Station on December 11th, 2022. Metrorail properly responded to this event. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Key Rose. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Ms. Key Rose? Thank you. That completes today's investigation report presentations. Is there a motion to adopt the investigation reports that have been presented? That would be whiskey 0210, 0211, 0212, 0213, 0214, 0215, and 0216. Any motion to approve?
So moved. Seconded.
Approved and moved and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say yay.
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 Any opposed, please raise your hand and say nay.
Again, I believe the vote is 5-0, Chair Hart. Commissioner Bob, if you could give me the verbal. That may be something we need to fix in the rules, but all right. 5-0.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. We have no resolution or other actions on our agenda today. That completes our business for today. As a reminder, you can always report any concerns through our website, WMSC.gov, through our social media channels like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or by email. Before we go, I want to thank Dr. Meyer and his staff for preparing yet another good virtual meeting. I want to thank the members of the public who appeared and who commented and who appeared. And I also want to thank the commissioners for their active engagement in this meeting, which made it a more fruitful and productive meeting. We expect to hold our next public meeting on May 16th, 2023. We look forward to seeing all of you then. Is there any further business from anyone? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.